Now, the Nikolai Volkoff story, that one hit home with me because I became a wrestling fan in 1985. I was 10 years old. And at that time, living in the part of Canada where I live, WWE was really the only game in town on television. It was WWE and international wrestling, which you might remember, Sean, out of Quebec. That's where Dino Bravo and the Rougeaus and Rick Martel came out of, and Rikishi as a rookie started in international wrestling. But it was mostly the WWF at that time, and on syndicated TV at the time, because the business model was so different, the top guys like Hulk Hogan rarely wrestled on television. They would mostly do interviews because they wanted you to buy a ticket and go to the live arenas to see them. Guys like Nikolai Volkoff, though, got a ton of television matches. And I think the reason they did it is because they wanted to rile people up with the singing of the national anthem.
Yeah.
So you'd buy a ticket to go to the arena and see him get his ass kicked. And so he was on TV a lot, and I got a lot of exposure to him. And I'll tell you a funny side story. So you remember Coliseum Video?
Of course.
They once did a tape. It might have been the history of the tag team titles, I think. It might have been. And I remember I was a young kid, like 11, 12 years old, whatever, and I was watching that tape, and they had a tag team match featuring the Mongols. And I remember watching that tape, and I'm looking in close going, that guy looks just like Nikolai Volkoff. And this is before I understood that these guys played characters and all that kind of stuff. And that was Nikolai Volkoff when he was one of the Mongols. He won the tag titles there before winning the tag titles with the Iron Sheik. But the other thing about Nikolai Volkoff, because I think a lot of people might remember him from his later years with Boris Zukov, and he was kind of enhancement talent, and he did the $1 Million Man thing in the 90s. He was a powerhouse, and he was a big challenger for Hulk Hogan in the mid-'80s. And his finisher, I remember, was he would power you over his head and then turn it into a backbreaker.
Yeah.
And turn it right into a pin. And he was no joke, but you always heard about how nice he was in real life. I remember a story about how
frugal too. You always hear those stories. Yeah, you always hear stories about how he would go to grocery stores in each town and ask for the stuff that they were about to throw out.
Oh, really?
He'd take a hot plate with him, and then he would get pissy when they would try to charge him for the stuff they were throwing out because he was like, "You were about to throw it out."
Right. A story that I remembered because again, he was known to be a really kind guy in real life. Apparently, the British Bulldogs were very careful with Matilda, their bulldog. Made sure that she didn't eat or drink before matches because they were worried she was going to go in the ring and do something. And one day they're at a show, Matilda's in the ring, they're getting ready to do their thing, and what does Matilda do? She takes a piss right in the middle of the ring.
Oh, no.
And the Bulldogs were like, well, what the hell happened? Like, we made sure, And it turned out Nikolai Volkoff felt bad for her, gave her a bucket of water.
Oh, gosh. So I have a couple little stories. Last week, I was surfing around on Amazon Prime, and they have some wrestling content on there. And I'm talking like 60s, 70s, real old black and white stuff even. And a Nikolai Volkoff match was on there. So if you have Amazon Prime, there's some stuff there. But a couple months ago, I made a wager, a friendly wager with a viewer of Fightful.com, listen, you boy, reader, Lonnie, on the Frank Mir Fedor Emelianenko fight. And I bet him that Fedor would knock Frank Mir out. My spoils came in last week. A signed Nikolai Volkoff comic book.
Where was that produced?
By Squared Circle, it says. And the timing of this is uncanny.
Very
Got
interesting.
this last week, so thank you to Lonnie.
Very interesting.